Welcome back to High Class Gear. Get yourself ready for another great video. You won't find anyone with more realistic and intriguing stories from the big 80s and the weird 90s than this channel. If you came here looking for something strange, creepy, car chases, police fights, stupid mistakes that came back to get me, or even for a little bit of knowledge, you've definitely come to the right place. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you stay up to date with all the great content coming your way. The following story takes place in the year 1986, when I was 12 years old. It had just reached first lunch hour, and we quickly made our way outside of the school. We stopped at the gate, looked over at the smoking circle. It was the place where people would gather to smoke at break or lunch times. It was the only time outside of class that you could find students and teachers together. My friend and I had already made the intention that at lunchtime, we were leaving the school and made no intention of coming back. Teachers didn't want students to leave the school grounds during first, second, or third lunch unless it was a school trip, or parents came to get them. Why should you leave school grounds at lunchtime when the cafeteria serves up enough lunch to feed the school 5 times over? My friend and I didn't care about that. The school didn't have Donkey Kong, Miss Pac-Man, or Pac-Man, but more importantly, we were tired of getting kicked out of class when we wouldn't do the Pledge of Allegiance. In the morning in homeroom and in the afternoon we were commanded to stand and hail the flag. It's like that folded piece of cloth was some kind of god that everyone had to salute, treat as if it was alive and stand in obedience like it was looking at you, examining you. It was worse than the nonsense about Santa Claus. We'd had enough. We checked to make sure the teachers were looking around in the smoking square and not at us, and immediately headed past the gate and onto the sidewalk in front of the school. My friend and I looked around the street. I wasn't sure where to go, but he seemed to be. "Taco, where are you going?" I called after him. I called him Taco, but his name was actually Ignacio. His family called him Ignacio, but his siblings and good friends called him Taco. "I'm about to check out Arby's." "Come on, let's get over there," he said while waving me over to look at the sign. I redirected my focus and started following along with Taco, but just before we got into the parking lot of Arby's, we caught a glimpse of it. The day and night corner store. We almost forgot all about one of the objectives of our skipping school in the first place. "Hey, let's check out the comic books. I think the next issue of Transformers should be out." I nodded to Taco, and he nodded back. Soon, we were inside the door of the day and night corner store and standing at the counter in front of the cashier. We each pulled out dollar bills and asked for quarters for the arcade machines in the back of the store by the emergency exits. "Got tired of that nasty-ass school lunch, huh?" he chuckled while making the change. "If the TC come in here, you're on your own. You know how they are about kids not being in school." He gave us a hard look while closing the register. We understood. We were warned. But that didn't stop us. We grabbed 25 cents worth of penny candy and slapped our quarter on the counter while the owner shook his head and smirked. We could hear the machine from the counter. It was buzzing, beeping, talking, making announcements. Our excitement grew. Next to the Donkey Kong arcade machine were 2 racks with comic books. We spun the racks, checking out each comic. We saw a deluxe Transformers comic that was 75 cents. Some big things must be happening in that issue. Taco slipped 2 coins in and started his play. I grabbed the comic and started thumbing through the pages, only occasionally hearing Taco yelling in joy or sadness at the arcade and the machine, responding to his moves on the joysticks. "Hey man, you gotta get in here. Let's you and me both take on this thing." Taco shot me an expression of both excitement and panic. I think the machine was starting to win. I looked up and smiled, then back down at the comic. I turned the page and was pleasantly surprised to see that Shockwave from Cybertron was also engaged in war with the Autobots. I glanced over my right shoulder to see men in blue uniforms and shiny badges pushing past the store owner, who was shaking his head and gesturing to us with his eyes to go. Damn, Truancy police, we were in trouble. My eyes grew wide in horror as the officers shoved and snorted their way closer and closer to us. I reached for Taco. Hey, Taco, man, we gotta go! We gotta go like, now! I yelled at him, dropping the comic book and running past the Donkey Kong machine to exit through the emergency door, which set off the annoying alarm. Wait! Taco yelled while running behind me as I could hear quarters falling from his hands and jingling on the ground. He lamented the loss of his quarters and told me he wanted to go back, but the advancing police made us understand that this would be a stupid option. We quickened our pace and ran as fast as our little legs would carry us, cutting through alleys, jumping fences, outrunning dogs not on their leashes. We knew that once we hit the yellow line indicating that we were on school grounds, we couldn't be arrested by the police. Anything before then, we were on public property, outside of school grounds, and we were guilty. If caught, we would be taken to jail, and our parents would have to come and get us and possibly face fines or more. We could be either suspended or expelled from school. Taco and I didn't want that. The police started gaining on us, swearing and using some of the worst profanity I'd heard in some time. One of them reached out to claw at us while we picked up our pace. Still another swung his nightstick, and it hit me in the small of my back. I howled in pain and Taco yelled profanity at the cops for striking me. We turned the corner just before the school, and speeding up, we were able to put some distance between ourselves and the truancy cops. Come on, where's that fence? Where is the school fence? I thought to myself while scanning the location, and there it was. Just around the back of the school, under the sign, was the large fence. I'd scaled it before. Now it was time to do it again. I got a running start and pulled myself up and over the fence, landing on my feet but falling forward on my outstretched hands. Taco had made his way halfway over the fence, but his shirt ripped and got caught in one of the bent bars on the fence. "Help!" Taco shrieked, looking behind him with the police catching up. "Suck your stomach in, rip through your shirt, and come through the fence." On 3, I coaxed him. At 3, he shoved himself through, ripped his shirt from the inside, but the jacket he was wearing over it was now covered in dust but not ripped. Once on the other side of the fence he was safe, but his right side was bruised and turned purple. I took Taco's right arm and put it on my shoulder and he limped next to me while we walked away from the scene. We turned the corner and tried to look as normal as we could for two guys that had been gone from school grounds for 2 hours. When we got into the school office, I had cooked up one of the most fantastic stories about Taco falling, me helping him, and how I was scared to tell the school nurse. There were so many holes in my story that the nurse and her assistant could only smirk and shake their heads. They knew I was not telling the truth, but they couldn't prove it. Taco had bruised ribs and a sprained ankle, but he would like to skip school another day. Sure, the truancy cops had seen us off school grounds, they'd given chase, even the store owner knew we weren't supposed to be there. But we hadn't been caught, the owner hadn't told. We were on school grounds, and no one could prove that we were other than where we said we were. What I learned that day was that it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. If you enjoy these videos and what we do here, subscribe to the High Class Gear channel, give us a like, and hit the notification bell so you always get updates on new content every week. Stay safe out